In the heart of New York City, inside a glamorous restaurant buzzing with chatter and clinking glasses, Isabel Grayson stumbles through the chaos with a tray of wine balanced precariously in her hands. She's 26, a waitress with dreams bigger than her paycheck, her brown hair slipping from its messy bun as she weaves between tables. Tonight is supposed to be just another shift, another night of serving the city's elite to fund her passion for interior design. But fate has other plans. As she hurries to deliver drinks to a VIP table, her foot catches on a chair leg. Time slows. The tray tilts, and a cascade of red wine splashes across the pristine white shirt of Daniel Pierce, a 32-year-old billionaire in a $5,000 custom suit. Gasps ripple through the room. Isabel freezes, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest, watching the crimson stain spread across the fabric. Daniel, with his sharp jawline and piercing blue eyes, looks up from his conversation with business partners, his expression unreadable. Isabel's mind races as she stands there, mortified. She thinks to herself, "I've ruined everything. Those eyes, cold and deep as the ocean, could drown me right now. I'm done for, fired on the spot. All because of one stupid glass of wine." My life flashes before me, a mess of spilled drinks and broken dreams. She stammers, her voice trembling. "I'll pay for it, sir, I swear. I'm so sorry." Her hands fumble for a napkin, but it's useless. The damage is done. She braces herself for the inevitable, expecting a sharp reprimand, a demand for compensation, something to match the reputation of a man like Daniel Pierce, the ruthless head of Pierce Enterprises. But what happens next throws her completely off balance. Daniel doesn't flinch. He doesn't yell. Instead, he leans back in his chair, his gaze locked on her. There's something in her wide, panicked eyes, something raw and real that stops him cold. It reminds him of his little sister Clara, gone too soon, the only person who ever looked at him without expecting anything in return. For a moment, he's not the billionaire everyone fears. He's just a man caught off guard by a stranger's honesty. His voice, low and steady, cuts through the tension. "Sit down," he says, gesturing to the empty chair across from him. Isabel blinks, confused. "Tell me something about yourself instead. That's payment enough." The restaurant noise fades into a blur as Isabel processes his words. She hesitates, her legs shaky, but something in his tone, calm yet commanding, pulls her in. She lowers herself into the chair, clutching the damp napkin like a lifeline. I don't know what to say," she admits, her cheeks flushing. "I'm not exactly good at this." Daniel's lips twitch, the faintest hint of a smile breaking through his icy exterior. "Try," he replies simply, folding his arms. His partners exchange puzzled glances, but he ignores them. To everyone else, he's a man who doesn't tolerate mistakes. To Isabel, in this fleeting moment, he's something else entirely, a mystery she can't resist. She takes a deep breath, her mind scrambling for anything to fill the silence. "Okay," she starts, her voice soft but gaining strength. "I'm Isabel Grayson. I'm a waitress, obviously, and I'm terrible at it. I've been spilling things since I was a kid. Once I knocked over a pitcher of lemonade at a family picnic, and my dad laughed so hard he cried." She pauses, glancing at Daniel, expecting boredom or judgment, but his eyes are fixed on her, intense and curious, like he's seen something no one else does. "Keep going," he says, his voice quieter now, almost gentle. Isabel swallows hard, her heart fluttering. She doesn't understand why a man like him, dripping in wealth and power, would care about her clumsy little story. But as she sits there, under the weight of his gaze, she feels a spark, a pull she can't explain. And deep down, she knows this night is only the beginning. Isabel Grayson sits across from Daniel Pierce, her hands twisting the damp napkin into knots, the murmur of the upscale New York restaurant fading into a distant hum. The wine stain on his $5,000 shirt glares at her like a neon sign of her failure, but his steady blue eyes hold her captive. She's still reeling from his request. "Tell me something about yourself," as if her clumsy life could possibly interest a man who owns half the city's skyline. Her throat feels dry, but she forces herself to speak, her voice shaky at first. There was this time when I was 8, she begins, glancing at him nervously. My mom made spaghetti for dinner, and I tripped carrying the sauce to the table. It went everywhere, the floor, the walls, even her favorite white tablecloth. She screamed, but then she laughed, said I turned our kitchen into a modern art exhibit. Daniel leans forward slightly, resting his chin on his hand, his expression softening in a way that catches her off guard. She expects him to interrupt, to dismiss her, but he doesn't. He just listens, and it's unnerving how his silence feels like an invitation. Isabel continues, her words tumbling out faster now. My brother thought it was hilarious. He grabbed a spoon and started flicking sauce at me, and soon we were all laughing, covered in red. It's one of my favorite memories, even if I ruined dinner. She stops, biting her lip, waiting for his reaction. The story feels trivial, silly even, but Daniel's lips curve into a faint smile, the kind that makes her stomach flip. A mess worth watching, he says, his voice low and smooth, like velvet brushing against her nerves. Inside, Daniel's mind churns with thoughts he can't quite control. He tells himself, I've heard polished pitches from CEOs, flattery from people who want my money, my name, but this girl, Isabel, she's different. She's spilling her soul like she spilled that wine, unscripted, unguarded, and it's pulling me in. I don't know why her laughter matters to me, why I can picture that chaotic kitchen so clearly, but I don't want her to stop talking. I want to hear more, to see her eyes light up again. He shifts in his seat, masking the turmoil with his usual composure. To everyone else in the room, he's still the untouchable billionaire, but right now, he's a man caught in a moment he didn't plan. Isabel fidgets, unsure if she's said too much. I'm a mess, aren't I? She blurts out, half laughing, half wincing. She expects him to agree, to nod and send her back to the kitchen, but Daniel tilts his head, studying her like she's a puzzle he's determined to solve. Maybe, he replies, his tone teasing yet warm, but messes can be beautiful if you look close enough. Her breath catches. It's not just what he says, it's how he says it, like he's seen something in her she's never seen in herself. The air between them thickens, charged with an unspoken pull. She doesn't know how to respond, so she tucks a strand of hair behind her ear, her cheeks burning under his gaze. The moment stretches, fragile and electric, until a waiter approaches, breaking the spell. Sir, your associates are asking for you, the man says, glancing curiously at Isabel. Daniel nods, but his eyes linger on her a second longer before he reaches into his jacket pocket. He pulls out a sleek black business card and slides it across the table. Call me if you spill anything else, he says, his voice carrying a hint of something playful, something daring. I'd hate to miss the next chapter. Isabel stares at the card, her fingers brushing the embossed letters of his name, Daniel Pierce. She looks up to reply, but he's already standing, smoothing his ruined shirt as if it's nothing. As he walks back to his table, Isabel clutches the card, her heart racing. She thinks to herself, what just happened? I spilled wine on a billionaire, and instead of firing me, he's asking for more of my stories? Those eyes, they didn't judge me, they saw me, really saw me. And I don't know why that scares me so much. I should throw this card away, forget this ever happened, but my hands won't let go. She slips it into her apron pocket, the weight of it pressing against her like a secret she's not ready to unravel. Across the room, Daniel steals a glance back at her, unnoticed by his partners. His thoughts echo hers, though he'd never admit it aloud. She's a spark in my gray world, he muses, and I'm not sure I can let that go. Isabel stands, smoothing her apron, and heads back to the kitchen, her mind a whirlwind. She doesn't understand why a man like Daniel Pierce, with his wealth and power, would waste time on her clumsy little tale. But as she moves through the bustling restaurant, she feels his words lingering, a mess worth watching, replaying in her head like a melody she can't shake. She tells herself it's nothing, just a strange encounter with a stranger she'll never see again. Yet, deep down, a quiet voice whispers otherwise, telling her this is only the start of something she can't predict. And as she glances at the card one last time before tucking it away, she knows that voice might be right. Isabel Grayson clutches Daniel Pierce's business card for days, turning it over in her hands during quiet moments at the restaurant. She hasn't called, hasn't dared to, but she can't throw it away either. Life moves on, her shifts blending into a blur of spilled trays and forced smiles, until one rainy afternoon changes everything. She's scrolling through her email at a tiny coffee shop near her apartment, chasing a dream she's barely admitted aloud. An interior design competition she entered on a whim. Her heart stops when she sees the acceptance letter. She's in. The prize is a chance to redesign a luxury hotel in Manhattan, and the sponsor's name stares back at her in bold letters. Pierce Enterprises, Daniel Pierce. Her mind spins as she reads the details. She thinks to herself, this can't be real. Out of all the people in New York, it's him? The man whose shirt I ruined, whose eyes I can't forget, is now tied to my dream? I should be thrilled, but all I feel is panic. What if he remembers me? What if he doesn't? Isabel's fingers tremble as she grips her coffee cup, the steam curling up like the questions swirling in her head. She's just a waitress with a sketchbook full of ideas, not someone who belongs in Daniel Pierce's world of glass towers and million-dollar deals. But the next day, she walks into the sleek offices of Pierce Enterprises, her portfolio tucked under her arm, her heart pounding louder than her footsteps. Daniel is there, standing at the head of a conference room, his presence commanding the space. He's in a crisp gray suit, no trace of the wine-stained shirt, his blue eyes scanning the group of designers like a hawk. When they land on Isabel, recognition flickers across his face, subtle but unmistakable. She freezes, clutching her portfolio tighter, but he doesn't call her out. Instead, he nods, gesturing for her to take a seat. The meeting begins, a flurry of technical terms and timelines, and Isabel tries to focus, to prove she belongs. Then Daniel speaks, his voice cutting through the noise. Ms. Grayson, you'll lead the lobby redesign. I've seen your sketches. They're bold. Don't hold back. Isabel blinks, stunned. She stammers, Me? I mean, I've never done anything this big. Daniel tilts his head, his gaze steady. You have an eye for beauty others don't see. Trust it. His words hit her like a wave, warm and heavy, and she wonders if he's talking about more than just design. Around the table, the other designers murmur, surprised by his choice. But Isabel feels something shift inside her. She thinks, he's giving me a chance. Me, the girl who spilled wine on him. Why? Does he see something in me? Or am I just imagining it? Every time I look at him, I feel like I'm falling, and I don't know how to stop. The days that follow pull them closer, an unexpected dance of work and fate. They meet late in his office, poring over blueprints under the glow of a desk lamp. Isabel sketches, her pencil flying across the page, while Daniel watches, offering quiet suggestions that sharpen her vision. Their hands brush once, reaching for the same paper, and the air crackles. She pulls back, her cheeks flushing, but Daniel doesn't flinch. He leans closer, pointing at her design. This curve here, it's chaos, but it works. You see beauty in disorder. That's rare. Isabel meets his eyes, her voice soft. Maybe I just like things that aren't perfect. He holds her gaze a moment too long, and she feels it, a thread tightening between them. Inside, Isabel wrestles with her thoughts. She muses, I don't belong here, in his world of wealth and control. He's everything I'm not, confident, untouchable, a man who could have anyone. But when he looks at me, I feel seen, not as a waitress, not as a nobody, but as me. It's terrifying, because I want him to keep looking, and I shouldn't. I shouldn't want any of this. Her pencil pauses, her breath catching as she steals a glance at him. Daniel's focused on the plans, but there's a softness in his profile she hasn't noticed before, a crack in his armor that makes her heart ache. Then, one evening as they pack up, Daniel hands her an old flyer from the desk, a crumpled relic from a design scholarship he funded years ago. Isabel's eyes widen. "I applied for this," she whispers, her voice trembling. "5 years ago. I didn't get in, couldn't afford the fees." Daniel frowns, surprised. "You were one of mine?" he asks, almost to himself. She nods, a laugh escaping her. "Guess fate's been playing with us for a while." He doesn't smile, but his eyes soften, a shadow of regret crossing his face. "Maybe it's trying to tell us something," he says quietly, and the weight of his words hangs in the air. Isabel leaves that night with her head spinning, the flyer clutched in her hand. She thinks, "We were connected before we even met, a thread I didn't see until now. He's not just the billionaire I spilled wine on, he's part of my story, my almosts, my what-ifs. And every time we're together, it's like the universe is pushing us closer. I should run, keep my distance, but I don't want to. I want to know what happens next." Across town, Daniel stands by his office window, staring at the city lights. His thoughts echo hers, unvoiced but heavy. "She's more than a chance encounter," he admits silently. "She's a piece of my past I didn't know I needed, and now I can't let her slip away again." Isabel Grayson and Daniel Pierce fall into a rhythm that feels both inevitable and fragile. Their late nights at Pierce Enterprises blurring the lines between work and something more. The Manhattan Hotel project becomes their shared world, a space where blueprints and sketches turn into quiet glances and fleeting smiles. Isabel's confidence grows under Daniel's guidance, her designs taking shape with a boldness she didn't know she had. But it's the moments outside the work that pull her deeper. The way he lingers after meetings, the way his voice softens when he says her name. She catches herself watching him, tracing the lines of his face when he's not looking, and it terrifies her how much she's starting to need him. One stormy evening, the office empties out, leaving them alone, with the hum of rain against the windows. They're reviewing the final lobby layout, papers scattered across the desk, when Daniel reaches for a pencil at the same time she does. Their fingers brush, and this time neither pulls away. Isabel's breath hitches as she meets his eyes, those piercing blue depths that unravel her every defense. The room feels smaller, the air thick with unspoken words. Daniel's hand moves, tentative but sure, cupping her cheek. "Isabel," he murmurs, his voice rough with something raw, and before she can think, he leans in. Their lips meet, soft at first, then desperate, a kiss that tastes of rain and longing. She melts into him, her hands gripping his shirt, the world fading until it's just them, tangled in a moment she never saw coming. Isabel's mind reels as they pull apart, her chest heaving, her thoughts a storm of their own. She thinks, "I tried so hard not to fall for him, but that kiss, it was like lightning, breaking through every wall I built. He's everything I shouldn't want, a billionaire who could crush me without even trying, but when he holds me, I feel like I'm home. I'm lost in him, and I don't know if I want to be found." She steps back, her fingers brushing her lips, still warm from his touch. Daniel watches her, his expression a mix of hunger and hesitation, like he's fighting a battle she can't see. "I shouldn't have done that," he says, his voice low, but his eyes say the opposite. She shakes her head, her voice trembling but firm. "Don't say that. Don't take it back." He looks away, running a hand through his hair, the tension in his shoulders betraying him. "You don't understand, Isabel," he says, turning to face the window, the rain streaking down the glass like tears. "I'm not good at this. I don't know how to be what you need." She steps closer, her heart pounding. "What do you mean?" she asks, her voice barely above a whisper. He takes a deep breath, his words spilling out like a confession. "My sister, Clara. She was the only one who ever got close to me. When she died, I shut everyone out. I built this life, this empire, so I'd never have to feel that again. And then you came along." Isabel's eyes widen, her breath catching as he turns to her, his gaze raw and unguarded. "You make me feel things I don't know how to handle," he continues, his voice breaking. Every time you're near, I want to pull you closer, but I'm scared I'll break you too. She reaches for his hand, her fingers trembling as they lace with his. I'm not her, Daniel, she says softly. I'm not going anywhere. I don't need your money or your empire. I just need you to let me in. He stares at her, the weight of her words sinking in, and for a moment she thinks he'll kiss her again, but instead he pulls his hand away, stepping back. I can't do this, he says, his voice hollow. You deserve someone whole, not someone broken like me. The words hit Isabel like a punch, stealing the air from her lungs. She stands there, rain tapping the window, her heart splintering. She thinks, he's pushing me away because he's afraid, but it doesn't hurt any less. I gave him everything in that kiss, and now he's throwing it back at me. I should hate him for this, but all I feel is ache, because I see the pain in his eyes, and I want to fix it. She swallows hard, fighting the tears burning behind her lids. You're wrong, she says, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. You're not broken. You're just scared, and I'm not giving up on you that easily. Daniel doesn't respond, his jaw tight, his hands clenched at his sides. The silence stretches, heavy and suffocating, until Isabel can't take it anymore. She grabs her bag, her movements sharp, and heads for the door. I'll see you tomorrow, she says, her voice cracking, but she doesn't look back. The rain greets her outside, soaking her as she walks to her car, her thoughts a tangled mess. She muses, I shouldn't care this much. He's a billionaire, a man who doesn't need me, but I saw something in him tonight. Something real. He's running from me, from us. And I don't know if I can pull him back, but God help me, I want to try. Back in the office, Daniel stands alone, the echo of her footsteps fading. He stares at the spot where she stood, his chest tight with regret. He thinks, I let her go because I had to. She's light, pure and bright, and I'm a shadow that'll only dim her. But that kiss, it's burned into me, and I can't shake it. I've spent years building walls, but she's tearing them down, and I don't know how to stop her, or if I even want to. He sinks into his chair, the rain a relentless drumbeat, and buries his face in his hands. For the first time in years, he feels the sting of tears, a crack in the armor he's worn too long. Isabel drives home, the city lights blurring through the wet windshield. Her heart aches, but there's a fire beneath it, a resolve she didn't expect. She tells herself, he thinks he's protecting me, but he's wrong. I fought for everything I have, and I'll fight for him too. This isn't over, not yet. She grips the steering wheel tighter, the memory of his lips on hers fueling her determination. Across town, Daniel lifts his head, his eyes tracing the lines of her sketch on the desk. He whispers to the empty room, What am I doing? And the question hangs unanswered, a thread pulling him toward a future he's too afraid to claim. Isabel Grayson spends the days after that rainy night in a haze, her heart bruised but restless. She throws herself into the hotel project, sketching late into the night, trying to drown out the echo of Daniel Pierce's words, You deserve someone whole. His rejection stings, a wound she can't ignore, but beneath it burns a stubborn hope she can't extinguish. She decides she won't chase him, won't beg, but she'll prove something to him, to herself. The design competition deadline looms, and with it, a choice. She could win, secure her future, and tie herself to Pierce Enterprises, to Daniel forever. Or she could walk away, free herself from the pull he has over her. She chooses the latter. The next morning, Isabel marches into the Pierce Enterprises office, her shoulders squared, her portfolio in hand. She finds Daniel in the conference room, surrounded by blueprints and his team. He looks up, his blue eyes narrowing as she steps forward. I'm withdrawing from the competition, she says, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. The room goes silent, the other designers exchanging confused glances. Daniel leans back in his chair, his expression unreadable. Why? He asks, his tone clipped. Isabel takes a deep breath, meeting his gaze. Because I don't want your money or your approval to matter more than what I feel. I'm doing this for me, not for you. She sets her portfolio on the table, a quiet declaration, and walks out before he can respond. Inside, Isabel's thoughts churn as she leaves the building. She muses, I'm letting go of the dream I fought for, but it's not about the design anymore. It's about him. If he thinks I'm here for his empire, he's wrong. I want him, just him, and I need him to see that. This hurts, walking away from everything I've built, but it's the only way I know to show him I'm not afraid. She heads back to the restaurant, slipping into her apron, picking up her old life like a shield. The clatter of dishes and hum of customers fill the void, but her mind stays on Daniel, on the look in his eyes as she left. Days pass, and Isabel buries herself in work, serving tables with a forced smile. Then one stormy night, as rain lashes the restaurant windows, the door swings open. Daniel steps inside, soaked to the bone, his dark hair plastered to his forehead, his suit clinging to him. The room hushes, every eye on the billionaire, who doesn't belong here. Isabel freezes mid-step, a tray wobbling in her hands. He strides toward her, ignoring the stares, his gaze locked on hers. What are you doing? She asks, her voice barely audible over the rain. He stops close, too close, his breath visible in the chilly air. I bought this place, he says, his words dropping like a stone. Isabel's eyes widen, her tray slipping slightly. You what? She gasps, stepping back. Daniel doesn't flinch, his voice steady, but laced with something urgent. I bought the restaurant, not to control you, Isabel, but to give it to you. Turn it into your studio, your space. You walked away from the competition, from me, and I can't let you throw your dream away because of my mistakes. She stares at him, disbelief warring with the warmth spreading in her chest. Why? She whispers, her voice breaking. He steps closer, rain dripping from his lashes, his eyes raw. Because you spilled wine on my shirt and turned my world upside down. You spilled light into my life, and I've been too afraid to hold on to it until now. Daniel's thoughts crash through him as he stands there, vulnerable in a way he's never been. He thinks, I've spent my life building walls, keeping people out, but she's changed everything. Seeing her here, soaked and stubborn, I realize I can't lose her. She walked away to prove something, and now I'm here to prove I'm not the man I was. She's my chance, my redemption, and I'll give her the world if she'll let me. He reaches out, his hand hovering near hers, waiting. Isabel's heart races, her mind a whirlwind. She muses, he bought this place for me? Not to trap me, but to set me free? I thought he didn't care, but this is more than I ever dreamed. He's here, fighting for me, and I don't know if I can push him away again. She sets the tray down, her hands shaking, and looks into his eyes. You didn't have to do this, she says, her voice soft but firm. I didn't want your money, Daniel, I wanted you. He closes the distance, his hand finding hers, warm despite the cold. You have me, he says, his voice low and fierce. I was a fool to push you away. I thought I was protecting you, but I was just hiding from myself. I'm done running, Isabel. I want this, us, if you'll still have me. The rain pounds outside, but inside, the world narrows to just them, their hands clasped, their breaths mingling. Isabel's resolve wavers, her walls crumbling under the weight of his words. She thinks, he's standing here, drenched and broken open for me. I walked away to prove I could, but now he's giving me a reason to stay. I fought so hard to not need him, but I do, and maybe that's okay. She squeezes his hand, a tear slipping down her cheek, blending with the rain on his skin. You're impossible, she whispers, a shaky laugh escaping her. He smiles, a real smile, the kind that lights up his face. And you're everything? He replies, pulling her closer. The restaurant fades, the onlookers forgotten, as they stand there, soaked and whole, a promise forming in the space between them. A year passes since that rainy night in the restaurant, and Isabel Grayson's life transforms in ways she never imagined. The dingy dining room where she once spilled wine on Daniel Pierce is now a vibrant design studio, its walls lined with her sketches, its tables replaced by drafting boards. She's built a name for herself, her talent blooming under the freedom Daniel gave her. But it's the man himself who fills her days with light. They've woven their lives together, a quiet rhythm of shared mornings and late-night talks, his penthouse becoming her sanctuary as much as her studio is his. Tonight, he's planned something special, a dinner on the studio's rooftop, and Isabel senses a nervous energy in him she can't quite place. The rooftop glows under strings of soft lights, a table set for two overlooking the Manhattan skyline. Isabel steps out, her dress catching the breeze, her heart fluttering as she sees Daniel waiting. He's in a tailored suit, his dark hair tousled, but it's his eyes that stop her, bright with a mix of love and something deeper. "You look beautiful," he says, his voice warm, pulling her into a gentle embrace. She smiles, leaning into him. "What's all this?" she asks, gesturing to the candles and roses. He takes her hand, leading her to the table, but instead of sitting, he pauses, his grip tightening slightly. "Isabel," he begins, his tone shifting, serious yet tender. Her breath catches as he drops to one knee, pulling a velvet box from his pocket. The world slows, the city noise fading, as he opens it to reveal a ring, its diamond catching the light like a star. "I never thought I'd be here," he says, looking up at her, his voice steady but thick with emotion. "I built my life to keep people out, to never need anyone. Then you spilled wine on me and everything changed. You saw me, the real me, when I didn't even know who that was. You gave me a reason to feel again, to hope." Isabel's eyes fill with tears, her hands trembling as she listens. He continues, "I love you, Isabel Grayson. I want to spend every day with you, every messy, beautiful moment. Marry me. Let's turn every spill into something extraordinary." Isabel's thoughts swirl, her heart pounding with joy. She thinks, "I used to believe I was just a stain on his perfect life, a mistake he'd erase. But now, here he is, on his knee, offering me forever. I thought I'd never belong in his world, but he's made me his world, and I've never felt so complete." She covers her mouth, a sob breaking free, then nods, her voice shaky. "Yes, Daniel, yes, 1,000 times." He slides the ring onto her finger, a $1 million promise against her skin, and stands, pulling her into a kiss that's deep and fierce, sealing their future under the city lights. Months later, the studio transforms again, this time into a wedding venue. White flowers cascade from the ceiling, soft music fills the air, and guests gather where tables once stood. Isabel walks down an aisle of petals, her gown shimmering, her eyes locked on Daniel at the altar. He's breathtaking, his suit flawless, but it's the way he looks at her, like she's his entire universe, that steals her breath. The officiant speaks, but their vows are what echo. Daniel takes her hands, his voice clear. "I promise to love you, to stand by you, through every spill and every triumph. You're my heart, Isabel, now and always." She smiles, tears spilling over. "I promise to love you, to fight for us, to make every moment ours. Forever, Daniel." The pronounced husband and wife, and Daniel pulls her close, kissing her with a passion that draws cheers from the crowd. Isabel laughs against his lips, her heart soaring. She thinks this is where it all started, with a glass of wine and a ruined shirt. I was a waitress dreaming of more, and now I'm his wife, wearing his ring, living a love I never thought possible. As they turn to face their guests, red wine flows in celebration, a nod to the night fate brought them together. Daniel whispers in her ear, "Every spill led me to you," and she knows with every beat of her heart, they're bound forever.